Akshay, good evening. This should be good evening where you are.
Yeah, it's almost good night here. It's around 11 o'clock.
Oh, where are you right now, Akshay?
I'm currently in Arizona,
Arizona.
Scottsdale, Arizona. Yeah.
Okay, 11 p.m. So, but thanks a lot, Akshay. I think we've been trying to keep in touch with you and trying to bring you over to this podcast for quite some time. And thanks you got that time today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a nice, I was going through the message that you sent me, Amit, and we have known each other for multiple years. So it's good to know people, because I have been getting a lot of inspiration from what you have been doing, and I believe that you have been doing the same. So it's always nice to talk to people who have been with you in this journey. So it feels good to be here.
I'm glad that we ended up in this discussion. So I've been trying to connect with people who have been from different domains. I've been solving different kind of problems at work. So, for example, I connected with somebody who is solving in supply chain, solving a problem of supply chain management, and that is something which is critical to say industries like retail, CPG, pharma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere, I think any industry today would need some sort of supply chain, right? Some sort of demand
Mm-hmm.
supply match. And
Yeah.
what are the kind of problems they are solving? They do a lot of forecasting. Demand forecasting is a classical problem which and it's like a trillion dollar problem which everybody's trying to
Mm.
solve and trying to see
Yeah.
how much of value they can extract. And that kind of
Mm-hmm.
fuels there are so many analytics companies and and say consulting companies who are trying to solve these problems, right? And
Yeah.
there is so much of machine learning being applied, and like the buzz of today, AI, Gen AI, everybody is experimenting with it. And I don't think there is a fixed rule book to play with, or like there is a fixed set of skills somebody need to have that, or say you just go out and finish this tutorial and you have got the skills to do something. I don't think that remains relevant anymore. There is a lot of push around, and the shelf life of tech itself is changing, is
Mm.
shortening. You learn
Yeah.
something today, and then you're trying to figure out how do you do something with it, and then it just goes off. So, my first thing I would like to start with you is, I'll just go back several years back, when somewhere around 2018 to 20 period, there was a lot of activity happening, and I saw this guy Akshay Bahadur putting up small clips of his experiments with computer vision. That was around a time where I was also kind of fiddling with a bit of this, and whatever were those experiments, they looked very cool. So something is going on. You're trying to write something in air and something getting written. So there
Yeah.
was. I thought that there was enough virality on in those videos that there are many people who started following that. But
Yeah.
I know how hard it is to kind of come up with those experiments or those projects, how much of time you need to dedicate. I would like to know that a bit about your career journey, and how did you, what made you do those experiments, and what made you involved there?
Um, uh, First of all, thank you so much, Amit, for taking me down that memory lane. It's been multiple years, and I have it's been like I think 7 to 8 years. But if I go back and look at the journey, it's been very fruitful for me. To be honest, I feel this could have been anyone, but I mean, luck kind of God was very, I think it was just very kind towards me so that I was able to make that leap of faith and come towards this side. But having said that, let me just quickly rewind back. So I started working as a Java developer in 2017. So 2017, I graduated from my college in Symbiosis, Pune. And then I joined a tech-based company, like it's a telecom company. I was worked as a Java developer, and that was the time when I thought that okay, let me now try to experiment because that was the time when I started liking computer science in general. Like I did my bachelor's before this, but bachelor's was I mean, I did not really work that hard in my bachelor's. I was a good student, a decent student, but I never really focused a lot. But then after my first job, that's when I realized that, I feel that in this particular scenario or in this particular field, I can actually do well. So that's when me and a couple of other friends, we started doing multiple projects, learning about technologies. So we started with IoT, and we also did a little bit of blockchain because blockchain was getting popular.
Mhm.
Bitcoin was getting popular around that time. And then I stumbled across machine learning, which was, a combination of maths and computer science. And I thought that was like a perfect area for me. And then once you start working on things, a lot of what you've already learned in the previous years aligns, in such a fashion that it kind of all fits in the picture. So
Yeah.
the computer vision part that you talked about is something that I learned in my bachelor's, just for fun. I did some basic computer vision related filters. How do they work? Mostly based out of my own curiosity. And then when I was learning about machine learning, and then when computer vision came as part of the online course, I thought that I already have some experience with computer vision basics. Let me try to kind of try to put these two pieces together and see if things work out well or not. And then yeah, and then I started putting out these snippets on LinkedIn, mostly because there was not a great resource for me when I started learning. So I thought that okay, if something works for me, perhaps it may work for somebody else. Let me post it out in GitHub, in LinkedIn, so that if somebody else is also working on something similar, can use my implementation or maybe even give me some pointers on how to improve my application. I think that's how all of it started.
Very much, very much. And I'm sure there would be a lot of people reaching out to you for different things. I just want to get a gist of what are the kind of requests you were getting. Like, was it like, okay, can you take classes? Or does it like, okay, how should I start learning, say, data
Uh,
science? What was the
I
nature of?
think I think most of them were about because this was around 2017, 18 time, machine learning was getting popular in
Yeah.
India. So in India, machine learning, like there was this buzzword that machine learning is something that is very interesting, it's important, but people had no idea where to start. And also because this was the internet age,
Hmm.
we had resources available on the internet, but people did not know which resource to actually pick.
Hmm.
So I think 95% of the queries were just about, how should I get started?
Started.
And I tried to answer almost all of them because I have been very blessed that I reached out to people on LinkedIn and they were kind enough to answer all my queries. So when it was my time, I thought that I should do the same. So I gave them my path, the path that I followed, which was I did a bunch of open source MOOCs, which are massively
Yeah.
open source, on Coursera you can find these courses
Yes.
online.
Yes.
So I send them link to all the courses that I've done. And then I mentioned that you should, but it takes time. Like you can't just learn machine learning in a day. It takes a couple of months to years to, get started in this field. But yeah, I mean, most of the requests were around this part, and I think a couple of them were about getting to like getting some collaborative effort with me, which
Yeah.
was also interesting. I collaborated with a few people
Hmm.
in my course of that time. So it's been a overall LinkedIn has been a very collaborative environment for me. I have never faced any like I've never had any bad experience with anyone that I've talked to on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah, in that way, it is. It definitely helps a lot of us, like the way we are connecting. It is on, again through LinkedIn only.
Yeah.
So there are a few traps what I find when people start, say, learning rather anything.
Mm-hmm.
But let's pick
Mm-hmm.
up, say, data science because that's something which we have experienced before.
Yeah.
For example, when you start learning in data science, one that okay, maybe there is some course, and that course is also designed by somebody, and that person puts his or her own experience and thinking behind designing something. Uh,
Mhm.
it's possible that you lose interest very quickly in something if it is not if it does not work out. Especially in machine learning, what I found out is that okay, you as long as you have some code to execute, it feels good. Then at some point, it feels that okay, no, the math part is also important to get to know.
Mhm.
And then you start getting stretched in two directions that okay, whether I should be continuing and focus more on the outcome or the application
Mhm.
side of it, or should I start moving more towards the algorithm and say the mathematics part of it?
Mhm.
What would make sense more, right? So
Mhm.
that is something which I've found, or like people felt that okay, I just executed it, I got some accuracy, and I feel that okay, I've done it, right? So
Mhm.
it's achieved. But then there is a whole new story that okay, this needs to be converted into a model that needs to be hosted somewhere, and then needs to be something which will be using it, right? This whole entire
Mhm.
machine learning operations ops, which
Mhm.
starts from there, and that entire world of ML ops begins, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what I would like to know, Akshay, is to a bit if you could if you'd filter out what are the real world challenges which you have faced in your career compared to the projects. Like projects are
Yeah.
really curiosity oriented, but here is
Yeah.
where the real thing starts pitching
Mhm.
in, right? Customers,
Yeah.
latencies, costs, so many things.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
know your journey, like beyond when you actually went into CMU and then when you went ahead, or even before that, like
Yeah.
how does the real world seat appear different or similar to
Yeah.
the reality world?
I think so. Definitely the projects that I did, and I think the people also who do projects in machine learning, these are mostly made out of data that is, kind of not really at scale. So you get around 10,000 records or maybe even 100,000 records, which you can process it at one point and then use it for your own learning and development. But I mean, definitely that helps you learn how the algorithm works and how the system works in general. But then there are certain nuances that you cannot predict that when you actually put model in production, and when real world users start using your product or your model, there are certain nuances that you can only learn when you are doing it in production. So there are definitely similarities. That is the algorithm part, the basic data cleaning part. You can take inspiration from it. It will be a good guiding light for you. Like doing the projects help you understand, like help you develop the acumen for working in the actual industry. But the actual industry experience is entirely different. So let's talk about CMU and the life, like slightly before that and after that. So before CMU, I worked at Lowe's, which is a retail company. And then after CMU, I've been working at Yahoo for close to 3 years now. So at Lowe's, the problem was around information retrieval. That is, we wanted to, based on a search query, we wanted to give you the best products which you can buy. Now, in
Hmm.
that case, the scale is not that great. Like the scale is lower, so you can still have some quick fixes and easy like models that are slightly heavier, but because there are less people on the system, you don't need to really scale for latency. And now for shift to CMU, all the models that we developed there was specifically on focus on accuracy. Like because there was no real customer, we had no idea, like we had no issue about latency. Like latency was never an issue for us.
Hmm.
It was mostly about accuracy, irrelevance, all of those things. Cut to Yahoo, because Yahoo is a slightly bigger company, it has more scale. We really want to focus on latency, and I have seen that experiments, although they have great results, by great results, I mean we do an A/B testing, we see our accuracy metric and a bit the business metric increase, but because of latency, we had to kill those experiments and then try to go back to the drawing board and figure out a way where we can actually get the latency down because in an industry we have SLAs around every product or every application per se.
Uh,
And because in an industry, or in a company, it's not just the model. It's the model working with the front end, working with the caching service,
Yeah.
working with the DNS service to make sure
Yeah.
that the client requests are getting processed and then rendered and then being shown to them, which means that every application, every module needs to have an SLA. And if it goes beyond it, even though your model might be the best, but if it doesn't follow that SLA, it will be very difficult for us to put that to production. So that's the biggest difference that I've seen.
Definitely. I just wanted to take a step back again to on your Lowe's experience as a
Yeah.
senior data scientist. You mentioned about you were part of the search team, search science team,
Yeah.
and you did work on information retrieval. I'm assuming
Yeah.
you would be dealing with a lot of text information or like
Yeah.
getting to the database, and that was pre Gen AI era, right?
Yeah.
So the toolkits which you would be using, the tech stack which you would be using, that would look different than if you were in Lois today, uh,
Yeah.
and say dealing with the same problem. So I wanted to understand that at that time, what was your toolkit that was around 2020? And today, once like we are flipped on the other side, if you had to attempt the same problems, how would your toolkits change? How would your approach change?
I think that's something that has been very interesting in specifically in this industry. Is that because machine learning AI in general is such a fast evolving field that the things that we did 4 years or 5 years back are now obsolete. Like we have to entirely redraw what we have done, and then we would get the best results. So around that time, we use a lot of traditional information retrieval things. So things like TF-IDF, BM25, these are old algorithms that have been, being used since the 1980s, 1990s. And then we use a simple machine learning model on top of it. Um, However, if because of Gen AI, a lot of these things become easier. So it becomes easier in all the aspects. So for example, let's say I don't know how to code let's say a BM25 algorithm, and let's say if I have cursor, I can go to cursor and ask it that this is my the implementation part, this is how the data is getting in. Now let's write a design algorithm for BM25, and then the cursor, which uses Gen AI, will write the code for you. Again, you have to test it out, make sure that it works. You
Yeah.
might have to change a few things, but then it will do the work for you. Second
Hmm.
part is, for example, we we dependent on the human judges. So for example, let's say any algorithm that we had, or any training data that we wanted to get, we had to ask human evaluators to first evaluate a particular query,
Hmm.
and see what the results are, give us the results in an order so that we can feed that to the model and get a good model prediction. Now we can automate this process using any LLM, ChatGPT, OpenAI, or anything else. Um, Also, let's say if I just want to brainstorm ideas, for example, which algorithm should work in this scenario, or what exactly am I missing here, I can brainstorm that idea with an LLM model, see what exactly is the best part about my algorithm, where am I missing things, what can I improve, should I use an
Yeah.
entirely new
Yeah.
algorithm,
Yeah.
things like that, right? So
Yeah.
I think it has entirely shifted the whole industry around, but also in a good way, because it helps you eliminate all these extra stuff that you probably would spend more time on. Now you can automate those things and then use that information into your current module, application model, whatever, and then get the best results quickly. So I think it has increased our productivity a lot.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, even if I talk about my workflows, my workflow has mostly been around delving deep into topics to make them more and more understandable, right?
Yeah.
So, and I end up doing a lot of conversations with these, whether it is Gemini or Claude or
Yeah.
ChatGPT. I've got a subscriptions to all of them. And And I find out that, okay, for example, if I have to do deep research, I've tried out all three. I found Gemini's research to be better
Yeah.
when it came to say deep research. When it came to coding, I found Claude to be a lot better. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe image generation, I still find ChatGPT, especially with their new gimmicks they have come up with. I think that has helped in some image creation also. But in the end, what I discover that with AI coming in, it has become more important what you ask rather than what you know. Uh,
Yeah.
how much, like, even in when people come, say, for say if you have to hire people, earlier that, okay, you had to know a lot of things, keep a lot of things in your head, and ultimately
Mm-hmm.
be able to say when you are applying. So but now you see the knowledge is getting coded. It's nothing but knowledge is
Mm-hmm.
getting codified with all these engines
Mm-hmm.
coming up. How can you retrieve?
Mm-hmm.
What are the best ways you can retrieve? And I believe that that also depends upon how good you are. So I feel this is a yin and yang sort of a thing going on, that you have to be at some level to be able to use that system to retrieve better.
Yeah, I agree. And as you mentioned, that's what I think that's something that has been going on for a while, that you should know how, like even before ChatGPT, people used to say that, you should know what to search on Google to solve a query. And I think it's the same here, that, you should know what to search. And that's why we have an entirely new job description of prompt engineers, which are nothing but basically asking the model, like designing the queries for the model, for the LLM models, to make sure that the results are as what we expected. So I think it's an interesting time to be in.
That's true. That's true. So I would like to delve a little deeper into, say, for example, today, as on today,
Yeah.
if say you have to build a machine learning system, okay, for
Mm-hmm.
say your companies. You may take examples from Yahoo or even otherwise. I would like to say build a team, and that team would be responsible for building some ML system. That could be recommendation system, or that could be, say, some applications of vision or language, right? It could be a
Mm-hmm.
multimodal system.
Yeah.
What would be the thought process, if what would be your thought process to kind of architect that system? That's one. And then second,
Mm-hmm.
how do you see, or what roles do you see, given today's context, and what you, with your experience around how, say, workplace is evolving, or to say data science teams are evolving in roles as
Mm-hmm.
well as the tools and architecture. So if you could take a
Mm-hmm.
little wider approach and start with it, okay, this is the way today is being things being designed. So this could be a possible architecture. What are the questions we should ask when we do that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, how do I end up building the roles and teams?
So yeah, so in order for now for me to, let's say, build a team in AI, firstly I think it's important to understand the roadmap of the team. So for example, let's say, is this going to be a research oriented team, or is this going to be more of a production oriented team, right? So I think based on that you have to take decisions. I am assuming that this is going to be research slash production. So, for example, we did do some research and then we also productionize stuff. And now, when we build this productionized team, it means that we need to have some researchers, where people who actually do research, some people who are good with the actual model integration to the system, some
Mm.
people who are also SREs, which can
Mm.
deploy the model, MLOps people, things like that. However, because it is tricky to find people with specific areas, and what I also believe in is, of course, you should have a depth-wise knowledge, but also a breadth-wise knowledge. So it's better to have like full stack ML engineers, people who know a little bit about research, who know a little bit about front end, back end, SREs, and then can they specialize in something, but they're also able, and they're also like good engineers in general, and people want to learn more. So then in that case, there is not like a few people that work on research, or a few people that work on the deployment part, or a few people that work on the actual
Yeah.
integration part. It's the entire team that's working on each of the aspects. Of course, there are people who are subject matter experts in a particular area, but they're also willing to share the knowledge with other people, and other people are willing to learn. So I think that's something that I will start with. because it just makes, I mean, that's just my personal belief. Like, I would like to believe myself as an engineer. So I have worked
Yeah.
on, as I already mentioned, my first job was as a Java developer.
Yeah.
So I know a lot about backend. I have worked as a data engineer as well.
Yeah.
So data engineering is also part of the whole building of the ML pipeline. And then that has helped me a lot in my later career, where for building an ML model, you also have to build a data pipeline. So all of these experiences help you. Again,
Mm.
you have a specialization, but then it's always nice to have that.
Mm.
Um, so that's the first aspect of, teaming. Team should know what exactly are they working towards.
Mm.
Then have a roadmap of what exactly are we planning to develop. So let's say if it's a new recommendation engine that we want, we should have a clear roadmap of what are the things that we want to challenge, and then develop things in an iterative fashion. So it doesn't mean that you will build the best recommendation algorithm or the best recommendation system in the first sprint or the first couple of months. It
Mm.
has to be an iterative approach, right? Second thing that's important is also always look at the companies that have developed this successfully. So we maybe look at the engineering articles by Netflix,
Mm.
TikTok, Microsoft, companies that have done this and have open sourced their papers, or maybe they have an engineering blog, so that you get to know what sort of problems they have faced and how they have tackled it. Maybe you might face something similar, or the exact same thing, but just like a nice exercise for you to understand what's the best sort of best practice that's going on in the industry.
Mm.
And then start small, like start working on the data part first, because in order to train a model, you first have to get the data. So I'm assuming that you will have some system. If it's a new team, you have to build those pipelines from like a central repository into your system, and then start using data pipelining model to get the features ready. Once the features are ready, then maybe have a very small model, like a very baseline model, so that you know the data that is flowing in is valid, and then you can have your monitoring also set in place. And then finally, whatever the model output, deploy that, see how things
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
and then iteratively improve each aspect of the pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah. What I see is that as you would have started your career, you started with being an engineer. So you got a taste of a programming language and how do you use that language to kind of build the back end, front end. And then as you fiddled with machine learning side of it, it might have pulled you a bit towards the math part of it. Okay,
Yeah,
doing enough math or enough of the algorithm so that because when you say do something in data science, explainability becomes very important because
yeah.
the data science projects are very closely related to business outcomes or business
Correct,
domain.
correct.
Data engineering is very, very close to software engineering, which is like, okay, I'm a techie, I build systems. What do you do with that system? That's your headache. But when you are a data scientist, you work very closely with business people and you have to be
Yeah.
very, very, for example, when you build a recommendation system, you would also like to know that how it is actually happening in production. When, say, for example, you
Yeah,
go to Amazon and what does it recommend? Does it really recommend
correct.
that? And you need to have say metrics around that to measure whether your
Mm-hmm.
whatever you have deployed has it degraded over time, has the model performance degraded, if it has degraded
Yeah.
it needs to be retrained, and there is a whole lot of system to be built which is just beyond when you say that okay I have built a data science model, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I and what I see is that, and that is where you need say software engineers who have lived the life of building back end front end, because in the end whatever you build is sitting at the heart of it, whatever is your
Yeah.
algorithm. But that algorithm, if you give him Jupyter notebooks and go ahead and try this out, that's a disaster anyways. And that is where most of the place where we see that the visibility beyond that final accuracy metric is not there still. And with GenAI coming in, that appears even more distracted. I mean, people talk about that. Okay, is classical data science relevant anymore? I say like this is
Mm-hmm.
not the right statement. It has its use
Mm-hmm.
cases still. It is there are solid
Yeah.
use cases where logistic regression does your job. It is highly explainable, also no issues.
Mm-hmm.
You want
Mm-hmm.
to try Gen AI, and if it does something, if it cannot explain, then in the end, it's the human who is accountable still,
Mm-hmm.
not the machine,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Yeah, so I wanted to understand a bit on the world beyond just the math of the machine learning, which most of the people actually felt the kick. Okay, I want to go into data science because the math is cool. Okay, I would
Mm-hmm.
say the math will remain cool for very short period, or you have to go and do PhD uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to stay relevant where your job is to improve the accuracy from 98.7 to 99.6, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
hardest thing to do. Either you
Mm-hmm.
be there, or say you basically go more and more breadth first, and you understand
Mm-hmm.
that how does it end up, and what are the systems, or what are the, say, tool stack to be learned, so that you are able to
Mm-hmm.
implement something which is usable.
Yeah. I think so. I think couple of interesting points that you mentioned, Amit. So I'll try to go one by one through each of them, and then of course you can let me know if I miss out on anything. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first point that you mentioned that I liked was the business objective part. So in an industry like the business objective, the revenue is the most important thing, right? A company can do a lot of cool ML stuff, but if it is not making money, then it will not be profitable. It may shut down, at some point. So whenever we build a machine learning model, we have an ML objective and then we have a business objective, and you are try to align both of them so
Hmm.
that the business, the product team, the business is also, kind of in loop with what we are doing, and our ML objective is aligned towards that. So, for example, let's say we want to improve revenue of Amazon search. Then, while building the ML model for the search, we want to make sure that we take into account the revenue part as well. Like how likely are we maximizing the revenue based on this ML model? So we want to either use that as a function or use revenue plus other things as a function. So that revenue is part of that.
Right.
So that's something that we need to look at when we are building a machine learning model, specifically in an industry when you want when you are a for-profit workplace and you want to make sure that you make money. Second part is about talking about the maths part of machine learning, and is traditional machine learning dead or it's still there? Um, I think all of these technologies have its own place. So traditional ML is helpful because it helps you understand the fundamentals of machine learning and how the thought process is developed. So somebody, let's say, doesn't have any intuition, comes to this area, and if I directly tell them, how the attention mechanism works, it'll be very tricky for that person to understand, and maybe it might even force that person to leave that area because they feel that it's very tricky. But if we go through the traditional ML part, try to explain how naive Bayes work, what are the priors and the posterior probability, starting on the probability part, making sure that the whole thought process is developed in this fashion. It helps the person to get that intuition a bit more intuitively. So that's the first part. Second part, that it's if you know your fundamentals well, you can learn anything. Like fundamentals are like the building blocks, and then based on the building blocks, you can build any building on top of it, right? So
Hmm.
you want to have the fundamentals right, even though they might not be helpful, you might not directly use them in your day-to-day work, but they help you understand the problem in general. Um, so that's the second point. Third point that you mentioned was about the PhD, the maths part. So I agree to that. I am, to be honest, not that great at maths. I am decently good at maths. I have liked maths a lot, and as an Indian, we have been taught a lot of maths in
Yeah.
our 10th standard, 12th standard. So we have a good intuition about mathematics in general. Um, and I think it depends on your personal preference. I know friends of mine who have done PhD from CMU, from other colleges, and they absolutely love the world of mathematics. and more power to them. For me, like specifically me, I would like to solve problems, and for that, I need to know enough mathematics. That is, of course, I need to know how logistic regression works, how sigmoid function works, things like that. And then also, I believe that in this field or in any field, you need to keep on learning. So, for example, let's say if I learn something that okay, we want to now use attention mechanism in our recommendation system.
Yeah.
Now, I might not know the maths behind the attention mechanism, but I can always go back. I know how um, uh, other traditional ML models work or how GRUs work. I can come back and then study that maths maybe in a couple of days or weeks,
Yeah.
and then yeah, and then use that knowledge intuition to build a model, and then after that, from that point, I will know the maths behind attention mechanism. So it's an iterative approach. You can pick and choose what you want to learn, and then because the internet, the resources are available in an abundant fashion, you can always go back and pick a textbook, or maybe just even ask Chat GPT or Gemini to teach you how how logic regression works or how the attention mechanism works,
Yeah.
and you can get to know the maths behind it.
Yes, yes. And this is something which I see, I would say both a threat as well as opportunity, is when you deal with these bots, Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT.
Mm,
On one side, being in education for quite some time, and especially like we deal with people who are already grown up. So if you are if you're in education, if you're dealing with kids, it's easier because you are still molding them and they're moldable.
mm,
But
right.
when you are already done with your 12 years of school plus 4 years of engineering, like 16, 17 years, and then you enter workforce, most of the times we find people sort of have already hardwired a lot of things, right? So
Mm,
and then the most difficult part happens is, and on the other side, as you said, that the world of tech is shifting so fast, the goals are shifting so quickly, the tools which worked before, when I said, okay, let me learn LangGraph or let's say LangChain. When I thought of LangChain,
mm.
people started saying LangChain is useless, don't use it. With your own framework, then something else changed. So
Yeah.
the most difficult part, what I've seen is like people adapting to the evolving tech. And if
Mm,
you're in tech, you have to be ready for continuous learning is something which uh,
mm,
I see in people, and that's the truth, right? And that's the way you survive. Otherwise, you see how the market scene is also going really, really bad in terms of
mm,
figuring it out. So I there are two questions for you. The first question is about this evolving role of AI engineer. Okay. I see there is a lot of buzz around people saying, and people have started formally using this as a job role. That okay, we're looking out for an AI engineer who have these skills, and most of the times I find it very vague. I mean, there are a lot of things there, right, to be done, and I think it still dilly dallies between that, as you said, the depth versus breadth, right?
yeah.
So, how would you define, say, an AI engineer for your team? And if you have to say and hire for an AI engineer, what do you look out for?
Um, I agree to that. So AI engineer, that term has been used slightly vaguely. Like I have also come across the same term. Um, if I have to hire an AI engineer, what I would probably look for, it depends on the team's requirement. So for example, let's say in the team, if I require somebody who has a lot of SRE experience, because let's say we have the model in production, we are facing issues, then perhaps I will ask for a more an SRE related AI
Hmm.
ML ops sort of an engineer. So even though that title might say AI engineer, but then in the requirements, I would specifically mention that these are the things that we wanted to look
More
at,
focused on
and
infra deployments,
yeah, things like that.
pipeline.
However, if it's a if it's a umbrella term, I would probably say somebody who can work on all aspects of AI, which means starting from the data preparation part, the pipelining, experimentation, model development, deployment, and
Hmm.
then monitoring. Again, it's a lot to ask, right? I mean, you are
Hmm.
asking five to six different areas of expertise from one person. But I think that's how things are looking in this whole scenario, that it is very tricky for somebody who does not know the model to be able to monitor the model,
Hmm.
right? Because these things are very, I mean, they are quite tightly
Yeah,
linked together,
true.
right? So somebody who comes on board should at least know how the model works and what exactly are the nuances of it. Again, it doesn't mean that that person should know it right from day one.
Hmm.
Again, it's the team's responsibility. It will be my responsibility to make sure that every person in the team knows the nuances and then, of course, keeps on learning towards it. But then for me, an AI engineer is somebody who can work on all aspects of an AI system.
Hmm. 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 No, I understand that people are I see that people are expected to pick up more things
Mm.
than
Yeah.
like you could earlier you could say that okay, I am say the machine learning guy, or I am the ops guy who does it.
Mm.
But over the time, and I see again Gen AI, the way Gen AI being pushed, everybody is saying that okay, now AI is there, start leveraging
Mm.
AI, start using AI. Why
Mm.
can't AI be used, and what are the aspects of your workflow, or say your ML deep learning or AI workflow, which could where AI could be leveraged to save time or improve productivity? That those are the
Mm.
kind of demands we see from leadership, right?
Mm.
So so if I have to ask this, that okay, as you mentioned, it's there are too many things to ask from a single guy. But what if
Mm.
we start in involving this new form of intelligence in different aspects, and see that are there aspects which are automatable, or at least some workflows could be created? If AI is given to
Mm.
you, how would you say, or what are the areas which you have tried to implement, and has anything worked?
I think definitely first part is automation. So for example, we want to automate a lot of, let's say in terms of images, right? If I want to build an image translation model, like based on the image, I want to create a metadata from the image.
Yeah.
Usually what happens is you show this to some person and that person gives you a description of the image. Now you can just show that to AI and then get the description, then use that in your system, right? So that's one way of, sort of a tagging
Hmm.
method. In
Hmm.
classification also, so any traditional ML algorithm, you can use LLM to sort of automate that, whether you want to classify different documents, you want to add metadata to the document. So that's like the automation part. Second part is the coding part. So you can use like Claude, Cursor to actually be able to write code for you. And then again, like as an engineer, you have to come and see how that looks, make sure that it is integratable. If it doesn't make sense, then try it again. Or maybe let's say if that code that Claude has written is not optimized towards your standard, then you can write the optimization part, and then the rest of the part can be just be done through Gemini or through Claude. So that's the second part, is helping in the development process.
Hmm.
Third is, of course, something that I've used is again using these AI agents. So for example, we have an agent for whenever we raise a pull request, an AI agent will evaluate it on its own and give some minor suggestions that you missed out this spelling is different, or summarize the whole pull request for you, and then use that. So these are like small things which sort of enhances the experience and increases your productivity. And you can be slightly more robust towards it. You can have workflows trigger using AI, which can deploy the model, and then based on the feedback or based on the if there's any error, can go and solve the error and then give you the exact steps to follow to solve the error, or maybe it can solve the error for you. But then
Yeah.
the issue at this point here is you would want some sort of a human in the loop where
Yeah.
the humans can actually verify what AI
Yeah.
is doing, because I think it needs more. time, more polishing before everything can be handed to AI. And I believe that may never happen.
Definitely. What is that you would definitely not be ready to give it to AI in your workflows? I can't
I
do this.
think I think definitely the username passwords towards any of my services.
Yeah.
We can, I mean, there is a way around it, but I'll probably just, and then also the last say towards, any step, the last say should be humans, where let's say if I'm deploying a new model, the humans should first see and verify, and then only evaluate, send that to production.
Yeah.
Specifically, there is a lot of legal in a customer-facing company. There is some legal ramifications that are also, take a very important aspect. So the legal team may get on your nerve if you
Mm,
do something that might be a bit reckless. So you want
mm,
to always have the final sign off signed by a human.
I get it. Yeah, so I mean, on one hand, where it promises a lot of open access to a lot of things to do, but I don't think real world works like that. And that is where the successful enterprise use cases have been a lot, but successful implementations have been very, very few.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think the legal comes, and I think the lawyers are the ones who are making most money today, other than engineers, I believe.
Yeah, that's that's true.
All right. So, few things, Akshay, towards the end, that, and especially again coming from a skilling perspective, um,
Hmm.
today the biggest risk I see, and it is talked a lot about in the industry about AI, is it making us stop thinking? Because till now, like machines were not creating anything. The generation part was still coming out of our
Hmm.
heads, right?
Hmm.
But today generation is also machine is able to do. So if,
Yeah.
for example, experiment with kids that okay, writing essay as simple as writing
Hmm.
an essay.
Yeah.
Let's think a lot, think about, visualize few things and write it down. And then
Hmm.
on the other hand, we see, hey, here is something, you give something to it and it produces something, right?
Hmm.
And given the way human mind works, that will given a situation will always take the path of least friction.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a tendency I mean,
Hmm.
we have, and especially with new talent, new freshers coming out of college or now within college itself, right?
Hmm.
Access to
Hmm.
these tools on one hand opens up a immense opportunity. And I want to ask you this question today: if you have
Hmm.
these, once you have these tools, how does your
Hmm.
learning look? Is how different
Hmm.
it looks from how did you learn before? And
Yeah.
second would be that how would you recommend for people who are coming new to use
Hmm.
this, right? And advise them against the risk, because I see there is a
Hmm.
real thing of avoiding that effort which you would have put when you were learning data science or whatever
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
experiments you were doing. In the end, there was a human
Yeah.
sitting and typing those code or trying out those
Yeah.
math. If
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
effort itself is taken away, then what's left for us?
Hmm. I agree. So I think that's a very interesting point, I mean, that you have brought is, is this AI making us lazy or not? We don't think that much, and I have 2 points towards it. And first one is I agree with what you mentioned. Is something I've noticed about myself as well, is that I spend less time thinking about problems because I know that I can ask a model to solve it for me, and then of course I can play around with it, see if it works. Maybe I might have an initial thought about it, but then I use or I verify it using Gemini or any other LLM model. So that's definitely true. However, I think it depends on each individual. So, for example, let's say it may solve your problem right now, but then eventually, let's say at some point later, because let's say if you are designing an algorithm and you ask ChatGPT or Gemini to design that algorithm for you, and then later on, couple of months down the line, somebody asks a question on that algorithm, or maybe somebody asks you to make a change, But because you haven't developed it yourself, it will be very tricky for you to develop that change, or you will then go back again to ask Gemini, ChatGPT to add this part, and the cycle continues. So it's a very individual thing. You want to, although, think of this as an additional supplementary tool, so you can ask questions, make sure that it can teach you all the concepts around it.
Yeah.
You can even copy the code, that's also fine, but
Yeah.
make sure that you understand what you're doing. How does it work in a bigger picture? Does it make sense to be, part of your code base or not? The style might be different. So
Yeah.
definitely that's my first point is it definitely makes you think less, I feel, but then you have to force yourself to use it as a supplementary tool and not as the main tool.
Yeah.
Second part that I have is um, I mean, this is how things work in the modern fashion. So when we have, when TVs were invented or when mobile phones were invented, people had a similar outlook that with TVs, people will start moving less. You will start going out less. With phones, also similar thing that people or kids will spend more time on the phone than be
Yeah.
outside playing. Um, so it's, I think, an individual
Mm.
responsibility, for us to make sure that we don't let that overpower us, because
Yeah.
it will be stupid for us to change the style, because nobody can stop the emergence of technology. People
True.
try to stop, TVs becoming popular or mobile phones becoming popular or even the internet becoming popular. But this is, it's very, I mean, these phenomena are so big that individuals can't control it. They can only control their own behavior. So I think those are the 2 points that I had. I agree to it because I feel myself being less, like I think less now. I rely more on Gemini, but then I also use it to question
Yeah.
and build my own knowledge base using that instead of just copying blindly from Gemini or from any LLM model.
And that's very true, Akshay. Because in the end, as I deal with so many people, and especially graduates who come out, I always tell them that I cannot be the one who can police around whether you are using it or not,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there is no point in policing around. In the end, it comes
correct.
down to your individual. Because I experimented this with a group where I did not allow them access to internet at all.
Okay.
uh, Taught them. We taught them
Hmm.
things, but we did not allow them access to internet. We went extremely old paper way. So like think, sit and think,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
jot down what you think, right? And people struggled, uh,
Hmm.
because again, it was more about that effort they had not put in, right?
Yeah, yeah,
If you
yeah.
put that effort, and that made them realize that okay, I think it was an illusion that I felt that I have learned a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
There was
true.
something produced in front of me, and it
Hmm.
basically strengthens your confirmation bias also a lot. It says that oh wow,
Hmm.
you have learned, and little too psychophantic, I believe, some at times.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So that, and especially with people who are very new to this, it's very easy to get
Hmm.
attracted and feel and get the illusion that okay, you have learned a lot. So at times we
Hmm.
did this experiment where we isolated people and say, are you able to think now?
Hmm.
And we found that people struggle. They said no, and so like, okay, so then it should be gradual, unless until you have got to that point where you have at least made two or twice or thrice of effort, and you
Yeah.
decide and you say, that's why I say it comes down to individual. You say, okay, I've got it.
Hmm.
Now the point of you have got it, then it starts becoming a burden because okay, should I have to type it again? Should I have to write this
Hmm.
pd.read CSV again? Then it starts
Hmm.
becoming a burden, and you feel like
Yeah.
okay, I just need something which could type it faster than me, and of course it can type it
Hmm.
faster than me, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a
Anything,
fair point.
but anything beyond that, and that's a very blurry line for
Hmm. Hmm.
somebody from me. For me, coming from I graduated in 2007, so
Hmm.
it was much harder for me to switch to this side. I find, but I
Yeah.
find these guys to be able to switch so fast. but they risk that. Okay, they said, I've built this amazing app. That's superb.
Mm,
But do you understand how HTML works? Not at all.
mm, mm.
So it's like
Yeah.
both sides, and we're trying to put that balance. And I hope that it evolves in a way where everybody is able to learn more. So just closing question, Akshay. Maybe you have a couple of
Yeah.
minutes to answer that.
Yeah.
What's the meaning of this x square minus x plus 41? It's like written bold in your profile. What does it mean?
So, so I think back around this time, 2017, 18, I was just like, I like to read stuff online, and then I found this like equation, right? So let's talk about number theory. So this starts from number theory. Number theory says that prime numbers are supposed to be random. So numbers like 2, 3, 7, 11 are prime numbers, and they don't have any, like there is no relation between each prime number.
Mm-hmm.
However, there was a mathematician, I think Euler, who mentioned that there might be a relationship between them. And then he came up with Euler's spiral, which basically you write these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 in a circular fashion, and then if you draw a diagonal, it will cut across all the prime numbers. So this equation x square minus x plus 41 equals to 0, this generates prime numbers from x equal to 0 to x equal to 41. The largest sequence till date. There could be another equation that can generate more prime numbers, but then it gives me a sense of idea of chaos theory, which means that although prime numbers appear to be random, just like our life, it appears to be random, but there might be some relationship between them. And then, when you sit back and look at your life, it may be chaotic at this point, but then if you look back, all of it will make sense. And then you kind of feel that, okay, all of it aligns well. And at that time, it appeared to be random, but if I look back, it appears to be in order.
I think that's a very profound thought, and I think after so much of times, I have started realizing this. And there's so many things which happened earlier. As you said, it appeared to be random, but I'm reaping a lot of my experiences now, and I
Hmm.
see a lot of it were connected, and somehow it is coming out and helping me. So, a very profound thought, Akshay, and would I would love to continue, and I would love to connect with you again in future to
For
discuss
sure.
something more interesting. Thanks for your time, Akshay, coming in and sharing your thoughts. It was lovely talking to you.
Same here, Amit. Appreciate your time. And yep, I'm looking forward to whenever you need me in the future. I'll be more than happy to join back. All right. Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you, Akshay. Thanks for your time. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.